Welcome back to the county seat. We are going to follow House Bill 148. It was one of the most controversial bills that went through the legislature last year, and it has created a great deal of conversation. In a nutshell, House Bill 148 is requiring the federal government to return lands that should have come to the state at the time that it was incorporated or accepted into the Union. We have with us the primary force and author behind that bill, Representative Ken Ivory, and we wanted to find out exactly what's happened with House Bill 148 since the governor signed it. So, Ken, thank you for joining us today.
Well, Chad, it's always a pleasure.
You know, you're kind of low-key and cool right now, but you have a great deal of enthusiasm about this bill and its progress.
Yeah, in a nutshell, we had some meetings back in Washington, D.C. with the Heritage Foundation. Ed Meese was there, and a bunch of others, and Congressman Bishop did the presentation on our lands initiative. And at the end of the night, Ed Meese did the keynote wrap-up for the meeting, and he said, you know, this is such a big issue. This has the potential of solving virtually all the ills that face our country. And so we translate that as to say this is the only solution big enough. We have debts, we have deficits, we have unemployment, we have unfunded obligations that are tremendous, and yet we've got trillions in resource sitting right here. We've got forests that have trillions of dollars of the most renewable resource, and rather than burn them up and allow terrorists, Al-Qaeda is already eyeing our forests, publicizing it in their network, saying they can do billions of dollars worth of damage for a single match. Rather than do that, why don't we harvest that renewable resource, have a healthier forest, and educate our children? And so this is the only solution big enough. The crazy thing, Chad, it's already been done before. It was done by Illinois. It was done by Missouri. It was done by Arkansas, Louisiana, Florida. They all complained to the federal government, said, hey, you're not keeping your promise. And the promise is in their Enabling Act at statehood, in many cases, word for word the same as ours. It's already been done before. It's the only solution big enough.
Now, some people since that time, actually some of them who recently were running for office, have indicated that this was our punishment for the practice of polygamy and that we aren't going to get those back.
You know
So
what?
when somebody says that, what's your answer?
That is so maddening. Read a book. You know, the terms of our Enabling Act on disposal of the public land, word for word the same as North Dakota, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi.
So they were word for word exactly the same.
Word for word the same on the disposal of the land. Last I checked, I didn't realize that North Dakota and Mississippi and Oklahoma had a polygamy issue. Word for word the same as Nevada, you know, word for word the same as Montana and Washington. Didn't realize they had a polygamy problem. That's just people making up history to keep themselves a colony. I don't want our state to be a colony. I want to be able to access our resources so that we have economic self-reliance for our state, so that we have education equality for our children, and so that we have greater environmental quality over our forests and over our lands, because the federal government is burning down our forests, ruining the lands, billions of dollars in deferred maintenance on the national parks, billions of dollars in deferred maintenance on the national forests, and last I checked, they're dead broke. To expect that they're the caretaker, no, those whose lives and livelihoods depend upon this land, history and common sense tells us they're going to be better stewards.
Okay. One of the other issues that continues to come up is if per chance, on some wild chance, the Supreme Court actually says that this should go forward and the transfer were to take place, the argument is, how is Utah ever going to be able to manage all that land?
Right.
And what are you doing to prepare for it?
Yeah, well, you're gonna can check the transcripts from our public lands, our Natural Resources Committee. But in September of this year, I think it was September 19th, we had our Natural Resources Committee. We had all of our state land managers there and asked that very question. You can go on le.utah.gov and go right to the hearing of the Natural Resources Committee and listen for yourself what all our state land managers said. Dick Buehler, our forest manager, said, look, when state forests are treated, they're managed. When federal fires come ravaging through and they get to a state forest, fire drops to the ground and we put it out. We don't manage our forests for maximum combustion like the federal government does. You know, and so we've got managers on the ground, they're great. Our SITLA lands, we manage them at a profit rather than the federal government wasting billions and billions of dollars, because rather than what they say, they started out and said their policies are to care for the land and the animals. No, it's about control, Chad. It's not about care, it's about control.
Has anything started to move forward with the interim committee that was going to start putting this plan together, this transfer plan?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, at the November interim hearing, we got our report from the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Council, from the Constitutional Defense Council, and the report put together a great deal of information on the economics, on the historical and legal case for moving forward. And so there's some reports that are available that we'll make available to you. You can post them. But there are reports that lay out this case. And so there's a great case statement that was done by the Constitutional Defense Council that people need to get and look at. And it lays out this fact. The promises are the same with all the states east of Colorado. It's already been done before, and this is the only solution big enough. And so that's available to people. The one thing that we're looking at doing then, the recommendation from the Constitutional Defense Council was to create an interim Public Lands Commission, because the economic studies and just what you're talking about, the transition management, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. And so we're going to measure twice and cut once. And so they propose that in this coming legislative session, we do an interim Public Lands Commission to do the studies, to begin the preparations, and then prepare for the permanent Public Lands Commission. And then in the meantime, we have that interim Public Lands Commission engage Washington. Because what we're hoping for, Chad, is not a lawsuit. What we're hoping for is the same thing that Illinois and Missouri and Arkansas and Louisiana and Florida got. They put persistent, prominent pressure on Washington, and they transfer the lands.
Can one state do this?
Well, no, I don't think one state alone. Now, we're going to do it regardless because our kids are depending on us. Washington's broke. We got a $2 billion education funding gap. $5 billion of our $13 billion budget comes from a federal government that's committing fiscal suicide. That's not a good business plan. We've got to move forward. We got trillions in the ground. We got $5 billion at risk of our $13 billion budget from these guys that haven't had a budget for 4 years, don't know what a budget is if it hit them in the face, and they're overspending by $1 trillion a year. And so we've got to prepare for our own economic self-reliance, and so we've got to move forward. But what's happened since we spoke last, we've got teams on the ground in New Mexico, great teams. In fact, I visited with the governor down there a couple weeks ago. She's wonderful. We're probably going to be going back down to meet with her. We've got folks on the ground in Idaho, met with the Speaker of the House, Majority Leader, a number of legislators, county commissioners there. Their county commissioners are as fired up as ours on moving forward to make this happen. They understand this is the only solution big enough. Arizona, we got some work to do. They've got 2 strikes against them. They had that Prop 120 where they're trying to eat the whole elephant, but we've got great team members that are now in House leadership and Senate leadership, and so we're going to get them to do it right. We went down and met with their governor's staff and said, look, we understand why you vetoed that bill. We've got to take this thing in bites and you know, take the national parks, the monuments off the table. We're talking about the lands that help us educate our children, provide education equality, economic self-reliance, and Arizona's going to be fine. Nevada's already got a bill on file. I was just in Wyoming at the testifying to their minerals committee, and so we got a team on the ground there, and we've got folks in Wyoming that are inviting us, or not Wyoming, I'm sorry, Montana, that are inviting us up to go do some presentations on the ground.
That one's going to probably need a little work too, isn't it?
Probably need a little bit of work, sure.
What do you think the timeline is here in Utah? I've got about a minute left.
Timeline as far as?
As far as moving this forward. What should we look for next?
Well, so what you'll look for next is you're going to look for legislation coming into this legislative session where we begin to build this interim Public Lands Commission and engage a commission to begin engaging Washington, engaging other states, building that collective network like they had in the 1850s. They succeeded, Chad. They succeeded. They've done this already. We're going to stand accountable for our children if we say, you know what, we're not going to do that because it's too hard. You continue to be $2 billion underfunded. And we're going to tell our future, you know what, we're not going to try to close that $5 billion hole because we know federal money is going away. That's actually federal law under the Budget Control Act. No, that's too hard. We're going to let you deal with it because, by the way, what have you guys in the future done for us anyway? You know? No, we're going to stand accountable if we don't stand up as wise stewards to protect the education equality, economic self-reliance of our state.
Will you come join us again during the legislative sessions and give us an update on how things are moving?
You know, I'd be happy to.
All right, Ken, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chad.
Appreciate it very much. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more of the county seat on our update show. We'll be back in just a minute.
Ever wanted to go on a vacation to Mars? What about a visit to the Old West? Impossible, right? Well, forget what you think is real. In southern Utah's Kane County, other worlds are just an ATV ride away. The Old West lives on in every sunset. From the downtown streets of Little Hollywood to the vistas that have inspired the world. Never find yourself closer to home and yet farther than you've ever been. Southern Utah's Kane County, where anywhere is possible.
Whatever your meeting needs may be, Sevier County is perfect. The brand new fairgrounds facility includes a large meeting hall, breakout rooms, and a perfect kitchen facility to feed just a few or hundreds. The county also boasts the Sevier Valley Center on the campus of Snow College Richfield. This facility includes an arena and numerous breakout rooms that can be used for any type of meeting, conference, or event. When planning your next meeting or conference, consider placing it in the center of it all, Sevier County.
How would you spend an extra day in Utah Valley? Stay one more day. Visit utahvalley.com to make reservations. Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Engines on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have liftoff.